Welcome to Forbes Newsroom. Joining me now is Zach Everson, a staff writer here at Forbes. Zach, per usual, it's always a pleasure to have you join me.
Always a pleasure to join, Brittany. Thanks for having me.
Of course, you report that the Republicans, who now control the House in the 118th Congress, are moving to undercut the Office of Congressional Ethics. Can you give us a sense of the new rules they're proposing?
Sure. And if you look at them, they are very innocent sounding. For starters, they're looking to enforce term limits that are on the books but haven't been enforced since, I think it was the 113th Congress. And they're also looking to require the Office of Congressional Ethics to hire its staffers within 30 days, which doesn't sound too onerous. Now, the problem with those, at least for watchdogs and Democrats, is that the term limits would kick off 3 Democratic members of the board. So it would give Republicans control of the Office of Congressional Ethics board. They would have a 4-to-1 margin there. And it's going to be very difficult to hire 3 more board members within 30 days, which ties into the second part, in that the office is likely to be short-staffed for the entire term because they need to get at least 4 members of the board to agree to hire somebody. It has to be done within 30 days, and the board's not at full strength. So it really is artfully written to just gut the office.
Yeah, definitely to the unbeknownst eye, that doesn't sound too bad, but that doesn't really sound ethical how you're describing it. So why would this be a top priority for the GOP?
It's an excellent question. And, I've reached out to Leader McCarthy's office, who put forward the rules, but they have not responded. They've apparently been busy with something else this week. It is a longstanding gripe of the Republican Party, though. They tried to do away with it in 2017. In fact, they did, but then there was so much outrage from voters, and even the ethically minded president at the time, Donald Trump, criticized the move. So they went ahead and reinstated the office. So I don't know exactly why. It's looking at their history. It's a pretty decent mix of Republicans and Democrats. It's not targeting one party or the other. I mean, heck, the most recent investigation they announced was into Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So here you have the Republicans looking to gut the office that just investigated AOC.
Aside from AOC, can you give us a few more notable names who were the subject of their inquiries last Congress?
Sure. So there was Stephen Palazzo, who is a representative in Mississippi, and he lost re-election. They were looking into him for misusing his office, helping his brother out, having congressional aides help him out. There's Carolyn Maloney, who got dinged for requesting a ticket to the Met Gala. I mean, it's the gala most commonly associated with AOC, and possibly what her ethics case is about. We don't know that yet. But with Representative Maloney, she had been dropped from the guest list and requested a ticket, and they're saying that was requesting a gift. Marie Newman famously promised federal employment to a primary opponent. She lost her case for re-election. And you have I think there's 14 or 15 members of Congress who were investigated by the office who aren't returning. And, while the office itself when the office investigates, it forwards it on to the House Committee on Ethics. The office itself has no ability to sanction members, passes it on to the committee, and the committee generally doesn't do much. That said, a lot of these people who get dinged and the information from the office goes public, they lose primaries or they don't come back. And I think that's a major issue that we're going to see, if the office does in fact get gutted in this Congress.
What are the usual consequences these lawmakers have faced?
Well, I mean, you get the extremes. It's often having to repay money that's owed. Any ill-gotten gains they can repay. The largest one was in 2002. It led to the expulsion of Jim Traficant, who was the famous Ohio Democrat who had a gorgeous toupee and would give his 1-minute speeches saying, beam me up, Scotty. He ended up in jail, and they did vote to expel him. So they can really range, but most of the time there hasn't been much of a sanction. And in fact, that's one of the other big issues here, is that investigations by the Office of Congressional Ethics, which again is the independent, nonpartisan group, those investigations almost always become public. Whereas if the House Committee on Ethics, which is made up of an equal number of Democratic lawmakers, watches the investigation, we may never know what happens. And sometimes even when the office forwards its case to the panel, it just gets buried. But at least by the office doing it, we do know that an investigation took place and we'll typically find out what the topic is as well. So at least voters can make an informed decision.
Aside from the one former lawmaker going to jail, it sounds like these consequences are usually just a slap on the wrist. So what are the ethical implications of this office being gutted?
Well, I think it would embolden lawmakers. And all of a sudden, the only people with authority to investigate them are going to be their fellow lawmakers who don't have much of a history of wanting to enforce these rules at all. They also know there's no guarantee that the information will be public. So that, it's taking away the negative sanctions here. And it really could be a big problem going forward. And again, this is something that impacts Republicans and Democrats equally.